The fluorescent lights of the pharmacy flickered overhead, casting a sterile glow over the rows of shelves stacked with medicines, vitamins, and small health devices. The quiet hum of the air conditioning was broken only by the soft murmur of people discussing prescriptions and the occasional beep of a scanner. Among them, Sarah clutched a crumpled prescription in her trembling hands, staring at the price tag as though it were a wall she couldn't climb. The numbers blurred together, taunting her with a cruel clarity. She couldn't afford it, she didn't have enough, and the fear that had been gnawing at her heart for weeks finally settled in, heavy and suffocating. Sarah had always been independent. She worked 2 jobs, managed her small apartment, and tried her best to keep life moving forward despite the mounting bills. But when her mother fell ill, her world tipped. The diagnosis had been swift and unrelenting, a chronic illness that required a daily regimen of expensive medications. She had scrimped and saved, cutting corners wherever she could. But now, as she stood at the pharmacy counter, her bank account balance flashing in her mind like a cruel reminder, she realized she had reached the limit of what she could do on her own. The man in line behind her was tall, with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes that softened his weathered face. He noticed the hesitation in her movements, the way she kept glancing at the total on the screen and then down at her empty hands. He could see the panic, the silent prayers, the desperate hope that somehow the numbers would make sense if she just stared long enough. And then he heard her mutter the words under her breath, almost like a confession to herself, "I can't, I just can't." The man stepped forward when the pharmacist turned away to process another transaction. "Excuse me," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Put it on my bill." Time seemed to freeze. Sarah turned to him, eyes wide, searching for some hidden catch, some hidden agenda. But there was nothing, only a gentle smile and an unwavering sincerity. The pharmacist raised an eyebrow, startled by the unexpected generosity. Sarah felt a wave of disbelief wash over her. The man shrugged slightly, as if it were no big deal, as if helping someone in need was just another natural thing in the world. Tears stung Sarah's eyes, but she blinked them away, afraid that letting them fall would expose too much vulnerability. I can't accept this," she whispered, shaking her head. "You already have," he said softly. "Sometimes we all need a little help. That's what makes us human." And just like that, the weight that had been pressing down on her chest began to lift, fraction by fraction. The fear that had seemed insurmountable, the gnawing anxiety that had kept her awake at night, started to dissolve, replaced by something she hadn't felt in a long time, hope. She walked out of the pharmacy with the medicine clutched in her arms, feeling the world was slightly less cold than it had been 5 minutes ago. The man was already gone, leaving behind only the memory of his generosity and the echo of his words. But the story didn't end there. For Sarah, that moment became a turning point, a reminder of the kindness that still existed in a world often dominated by indifference. She returned home and administered her mother's first dose of the medication, watching as the lines of pain on her mother's face softened. Every small improvement, every smile, became a testament to the ripple effect of a single act of generosity. In the following days, Sarah couldn't stop thinking about the man who had helped her. She wanted to pay it forward but wasn't sure how. She didn't have much herself, but she had time, energy, and empathy, things that were free, yet infinitely valuable. So she started volunteering at the local community center, helping families navigate their own struggles with medical bills, employment challenges, and the quiet despair that so often accompanied financial hardship. She discovered that even the smallest gestures, a kind word, a shared meal, a listening ear, could transform lives. Each act of kindness reminded her of the man in the pharmacy, and she realized that his gift had done more than cover a medical bill, it had sparked a chain reaction. Weeks turned into months, and Sarah's mother's health gradually improved. The bond between them deepened, forged in the quiet moments of shared vulnerability and the struggle against odds that had once seemed insurmountable. And in the quiet of those nights, Sarah would reflect on the man who had walked into her life and reminded her of the goodness in people. One evening, while volunteering at the community center, a young woman approached her, hesitant and ashamed. She held a prescription in her hands, her eyes brimming with tears as she admitted she couldn't afford the medicine. Sarah felt the familiar knot in her chest, the fear, the desperation, but this time, she didn't hesitate. She looked the woman in the eyes and said, "It's going to be okay. We'll figure this out together." In that moment, Sarah realized she had been transformed. The helplessness that had once defined her was replaced by empowerment. She understood that help doesn't just alleviate immediate suffering, it creates a legacy, a culture of compassion that can extend far beyond a single transaction. Over the years, Sarah continued to pay it forward, her acts of kindness spreading in ways she could never have imagined. The small gestures compounded, touching lives across her community, giving hope to those who had none, reminding people that there was always someone willing to extend a hand in times of need. And she never forgot the man in the pharmacy, whose simple act of generosity had ignited a fire within her, a fire that would continue to burn brightly for the rest of her life. Her story became a quiet legend in her community. People spoke of the woman who had once stood helpless in a pharmacy line, only to transform into a beacon of hope and kindness. She didn't do it for recognition or praise, she did it because she knew what it felt like to need help, to face a moment when despair seemed absolute. And in that knowledge, she found her purpose. Years later, when asked about her motivation, she would smile and say, "It only takes one person to believe in you to change the course of your life. I was that person for someone else. And someone was that person for me." Sarah's journey reminds us all that no act of kindness is too small, no gesture insignificant. When we lift each other up, even in the simplest ways, we create ripples that extend far beyond what the eye can see. We have the power to transform fear into hope, despair into courage, and loneliness into connection. So next time you see someone struggling, remember the man in the pharmacy line and the young woman who received his help. Consider how your actions, no matter how small, might ignite hope in someone's life. And always remember that even a single moment of generosity can echo through time, changing not just a life, but the world around it. Sarah's story isn't just about medicine, bills, or the challenges life throws at us, it's about the extraordinary human capacity for empathy and compassion. It's about the profound truth that we are all connected, and that in helping one another, we ultimately heal ourselves. If there's one lesson to carry forward, it's this: never underestimate the power of a kind word, a helping hand, or a heart willing to give. Because sometimes, the smallest gesture can become the catalyst for a lifetime of change. So, take this story with you, let it inspire you, and remember that you too can make a difference. Be the person who lights the way for someone in darkness. And as Sarah discovered, when you give, you receive far more than you could ever imagine. Life isn't always easy, and we will all face moments when we feel powerless. But even in those moments, hope exists, in the generosity of strangers, the love of family, and the courage within ourselves to keep moving forward. Be brave, be kind, and never stop believing in the ripple effect of goodness. Because one day, your single act of kindness could be the turning point in someone else's life, and in the process, it will transform your own. Months turned into a year, and Sarah's life had taken on a rhythm she could never have imagined. Her mother's health had stabilized, thanks to the medicine that had once seemed unattainable, and the warmth of recovery had brought them closer than ever. Yet, Sarah could not forget the man in the pharmacy line, the stranger whose simple words had shifted the trajectory of her life. She often wondered about him, what had inspired him, and whether he even realized the impact of his kindness. One rainy afternoon, Sarah was walking home from the community center, umbrella pressed against her shoulder, when she saw a young boy sitting on a curb, shivering, clutching a small paper bag. His clothes were soaked, and he looked up at her with wide, fearful eyes. The moment reminded her painfully of herself a year ago, the helplessness, the panic, the quiet hope that someone, anyone, would intervene. Without hesitation, she knelt beside him. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. The boy shook his head, his lip quivering. I don't have anywhere to go," he whispered. His words cut through her heart like a knife. She could feel the cold, the hunger, the fear radiating from him. And she knew she had a choice: walk by, or step into his world and offer help. Sarah offered him her hand. "Come with me," she said. And for the first time in a long while, she felt that familiar thrill of purpose, the same warmth she had felt when helping the woman at the pharmacy. They walked together to the community center, where she made him a warm meal and helped him contact his family. That evening, she sat beside him as he ate, listening to his story of loss, fear, and confusion. Each word reminded her that kindness wasn't just a gift, it was a lifeline. It wasn't long before Sarah's work began to gain recognition. Local news outlets covered the story of the woman who had turned a moment of desperation into a mission of compassion. People from the community began reaching out, inspired by her example, volunteering their time, donating food, clothes, and resources to the center. The ripple effect that had started with a single act in the pharmacy had grown exponentially, spreading far beyond what Sarah could have imagined. But even as